If you've just bought your DJI Mini 2 drone, or Mini SE, or Mavic Mini for that matter, and you don't know what you don't know, right? Well, there are some key settings you should understand and change, so don't go away. Hey guys, Mike here and welcome back to the channel. Now in recent months I've had a lot of comments on my videos from people saying how they've just got their first drone, in many cases the DJI Mini 2, and that they've got a lot of value from the tips that are on my channel. Now it occurred to me that many of these tips are things that I've picked up a number of months into my experience with the Mini 2 and would have been really helpful if I'd known them right at the start. So in this video I thought I'd put together a list of the settings that you, as a new DJI Mini 2, Mini SE or even Mavic Mini owner, should definitely know. So let's get into it. The first thing you want to do before you take off is make sure you've got your home point set so the drone knows where to come back to if it needs to. To set your home point before you take off, you just have to wait. The system will do it for you, but you do have to be patient. Now the return to home point can be set manually, but it's best to let the drone connect with a number of GPS satellites and just let it do it itself. It literally only takes a couple of minutes, and you'll see the message appear in the app when it's completed. And you'll hear the familiar,
"The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map."
Now, one of the things you should get into the habit of doing is format your SD card, especially if it's the first time you've used it. From the SD card to my computer, I never delete it from the SD card until I'm sure the files have been transferred correctly and that there's no issues with them. But I then almost always forget to clear them off the card, because to do that you have to have the phone connected to the controller connected to the drone, etc. And by that stage I've normally switched everything off and put it all away. So I leave myself a little note in my carry bag to make sure that I do it before I take off. So to do it before you take off, I've got a shortcut. Go across to the system status area, touch that, and this opens up a shortcut to a number of settings without you having to dive through a bunch of other menus. Scroll down and you'll see an option to quickly reformat the card so it's nice and empty and ready for another day's recording. Next thing you want to do is tell your drone what to do if it loses connection with your controller. This is one of a number of settings related to the return to home function. Now I've made a video all about that, so be sure to check that one out. I'll put a link in the description below to that video. Anyway, there is one type of return to home function called the fail-safe return to home. Now this is triggered if the drone does not receive any signal from the controller for more than 11 seconds. What will happen then is the drone will back up for 50 meters. In other words, it'll retrace its last flight path 50 meters in the hope that it'll pick up a signal again. If it doesn't regain a signal, it'll go into fail-safe return to home. And what it does then depends on what you have set in the app. Now you can make it hover when it loses signal, you can set it to descend and land straight away. I'm not too keen on that one. Or it can be set to return to home, and that's what I've got mine set on. You may want to have it hover if, for example, you've taken off from a boat and the boat is moved or drifted and you don't want it returning to your home point in the middle of the oceans. So having it hover instead may be an option, and hope you regain signal before the battery dies. The next setting you want to take notice of is the return to home altitude. So when the return to home function is activated, for whatever reason, a drone will go straight up to a predetermined altitude before then flying back to be above the home point and then descend. If, however, that predetermined altitude is, for example, 30 meters high, but there are buildings, power pylons, trees, or other tall obstacles that are higher than 30 meters high, and they are in between your drone and the home point, then your drone will crash into them. The Mini 2 does not, repeat, does not have obstacle avoidance sensors, so it will not take any evasive action. So what I do whenever I fly the drone is to have a look around the area I'll be flying in and see what the tallest object is, estimate its height, add a bit of buffer, then go into your app, go to settings, safety, and then scroll down to where you see auto return to home altitude and set the altitude to the height that you want. Now bear in mind that the legal limit in most countries is around 120 meters. Next are the gimbal settings. The gimbal is actually capable of tilting up another 20 degrees, which means you can capture a lot more of the landscape or sky, which is really useful when you're taking panoramas, for example. Now this setting is off as a default, but to switch it on is really easy. Simply go across to Control and scroll down until you see the Allow Upward Gimbal Rotation option and click that to turn it on. Again, what that'll do is give your gimbal the freedom of another 20 degrees upward, which will give you a lot more of an image to work with. Now this is especially important if you want to crop images for use on Instagram, for example. And I've made a video about exactly that, so head across now and I'll see you over there. Cheers guys.